All right. Obviously, it's a new week, and we all get a fresh start. It is, we're not going to be a team that we're going to fight our butts off to not be a team that lets our frustrations or our disappointment of last weekend impact this one. And so this is a huge week here. Obviously, family weekend is always a big deal on campus here. It's a red out cancer awareness game, supporting the Ginny Clements Cancer Center here, and I think it's a cool thing to recognize that. We have, I'm sure we have a few that have been affected by cancer on our team, but I know currently Quali Conley's mother, Renisha, is in her second bout with breast cancer, and so this is something that we're talking about as a team that I think is really impactful. I want to thank our fans last weekend. I thought they were fantastic, just showing out like that. I thought the Zona Zoo was amazing. It's awesome just to see the student population support this team the way they do. And I think there's still a lot for us to be excited about. We have 5 games left, and that's a lot of football. And that's what we're going to focus on, is what can we do right now to give us a chance to move forward together that gives us the best chance to play good football and have a chance to win on Saturdays.
All right, we'll start with Justin.
So the guys who came back, there was a togetherness, and it seemed like there was like a genuine joy for playing the game of football. The last 2 weeks, that hasn't really seemed the case. Do you feel like they've lost that joy, and how do you get that back?
I don't think that's reflected in how we practice and how they are when they're around each other. I think, when you don't get the outcome you want, there's going to be disappointment there. But I think the important thing is, whether you win or you lose, you got to flush that thing in 24 hours and get back ready to go for the next one, because there's another big-time opponent coming your way. So I don't think that's the case, but I do think when you lose a game that there's obviously going to be frustration.
Brian?
Considering the number of injuries that have been stacking up, particularly on defense, is there any discussion of trying to limit the amount of use of some of those guys on special teams? We saw Dalton taking back that kickoff and just other guys. Is there any talk of doing that?
Yeah. So that's that's a fine line, right? Because you want to have your best players on the field at all times, and but like after that first one, we took Dalton out. You know what I mean? So like we made that decision in game. I do think it's important that I just let y'all know. Jacob is going to be out for the season, and so is Rhino, and so just so you guys have a heads up on that. It's unfortunate how those things happened, but this is a situation where, like, you always say next guy up, but somebody has to pick up the flag, and somebody has to get ready to go. And we're counting on each other to get, what we do collectively and how we play, and give us a chance to play clean football on Saturday in terms of what we choose to do schematically.
David?
Coach, quarterback has been missing high, Noah, on some passes. Obviously, there's some instances where he's getting hit, but for the flat-footed ones where he's missing high, what are you seeing in the technique there?
I think sometimes when you do that, you overstride. So you're kind of like winding up to try and generate power, and you overstride and your hips sink, and then that ball sails on you. And I do think there is a part of that where some of the protection stuff has been hard on him if you combine the pressures and the sacks, and that's something that Big Josh and our offensive line are working really hard to fix.
Just to follow on the special teams question, is there a mix in your philosophy of how many starters you'd like to have on your special teams units versus 2s or 3s?
I think that varies team by team that I've been a part of. I've had situations where I've had all starters on 2 of the 4. It just depends on how effective can we be covering kicks or returning kicks or blocking kicks with the people that are out there. So it just depends on kind of what that, kind of that toughness piece, that part of your football team that is kind of just getting started in their college football journey. And those special teams are so valuable for them because they get to feel the speed of the game, and all those things. They're either defending space or you're attacking space, and that's football. So I think those are also great learning situations for a lot of our younger players too.
After the game on Saturday, you said that the loss was 100% on you. You need to coach better. Are there any specific adjustments you're making in your approach to coaching this team?
Not in my approach, but in terms of what we're talking about, when you combine the situation we're in with our injuries, and then when you put young players out there or new players out there, you got to do a great job of making sure they can execute at a high level and everybody's going to the right spot or blocking the right guy or running the right route or whatever that is or covering the right spot on the field. So that's kind of the conversations that we're having is, what can we do that gives us a chance to play cleaner?
Michael?
Given what Rhino's status and the troubles you had replacing him in game, what is the plan for the offensive tackle positions moving
So right now it's going to be Michael Wooten, and then Joey Capper's going to be backing up a couple of those spots, inside and maybe
forward?
outside.
Is that Michael at left or
Uh,
Jonah?
I think it's going to be Jonah at left. We're still working through that. Today is kind of a recovery and a development day, and so that was just us getting back out there and kind of getting moving around and some of that. So
Do you think Michael will be in a better headspace with a
Yeah,
week of
I-
practice versus being thrown in like he was?
I hope so. I hope so. One of the things that was unfortunate for him is he got rolled up in training camp, so he missed a few weeks of practice that way. But we're excited that he's here and he's a young player. And when you look at that group, right, with Rhino being the left tackle, redshirt freshman, Deuce being a redshirt freshman, now we're putting a redshirt sophomore out there. There's just a lot of youth there, right? And so that speaks to the idea that we have to be smart and as a coaching staff in terms of what we ask our people to do.
Jason Barr?
When it comes to managing people, some guys need a pat on the back, some are better left alone, and some could use a little kick. Would you ever get in a guy's face, or is that not your personality, or is that not where some of these guys are at right now?
I have no trouble getting in anyone's face. That's not ever been a problem for me. I think it's important that you know exactly who you're doing that to, and are they someone that's going to respond the right way from that kind of stimulus? You know what I mean? I would say the generation that we're coaching right now struggles with that a lot more than maybe previous teams or previous generations that I've coached. I've been doing it a long time now. But every player is different. Every player responds differently to that kind of intensity.
Jason Shu?
Yesterday throughout college football, it started earlier than usual, but coordinators were fired throughout the country. Have you ever done something like that, mid-season, made coaching changes, and just kind of how do you evaluate coaching staffs throughout a season?
Yeah, we made that decision this year, right? So yeah, that's an ongoing process. I think whenever you're in a window like we're in right now, where you've struggled, like you're evaluating every part of the program from top to bottom, right? Like how we eat, how we practice, how we sleep, how we travel, how we coach them, our endo, like everything. So that's an ongoing process, always is.
And then when you look at the offense, you talk about making it simple, making it more. When you say that, is it just a matter of looks? Is it play calling? What goes into making the offense more simple for the guys to execute it?
Well, I think it's, we've had, massive install in fall camp, right? And then now we've been playing 7 games. And you just what stuff are we best at executing, right? And so pulling from a menu that's maybe not as big, right? More of a bar menu than the whole menu at Chili's or whatever, right?
David?
Coach, I know in the spring you guys talked a lot about trying to keep some of the same verbiage that the offense had from the old regime. How much of the actual scheme though came over from the old regime? Was there a lot of the scheme that came over as well, or was it mostly your own scheme?
No, yeah, it was a combination of those two things. I think what you find is that most people are running versions of the same plays, right? And so for us to take the concept and just borrow the name was easy.
And when you just to clarify, when you just said that you did make an in-season change, you were referring to
Coach Favors and Coach
accelerating
Atkins, yeah.
Atkins, yeah.
Michael?
Two questions for you, if that's okay. The first one, we've talked all year about getting the ball to T-Mac
Yep.
versus spreading the ball around. It
Yep.
seemed like it kind of went a little too far last week and he wasn't targeted that much. What did you see in that regard, and what do you think about how many times?
Yeah, I think 2 things there. I think number one, we have to find a way to get him the football better. The other part of that is he was getting doubled a lot, like the whole game. So that's complicated when they're going to do that to him, right? So we have to be creative with our scheme that way in terms of how do we give him a chance to get away from that double.
Yeah, and the other question was, last year at San Jose State, you guys started 1-5, and then you won 6 in a row. So you had a kind of a mid-season turnaround. Is there anything you can draw from that experience or other experiences that you've had as a head coach that you can use?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, whenever you're in the struggle, like the only way to it is going through it. And we have to continue, and that's why the practice environment is so important. That's why the meetings, like just focusing on right now and this day and this moment and not getting caught up on 5 days from now so that we can get the most out of this time we have to improve. And that's what this time is all about for us. Like we have to make a jump, we have to improve this week. And it starts with me and every guy deciding that they're willing to do that, that they're willing to put in the work that gives them a chance to improve. Like we don't get to feel sorry for ourselves or be a baby. This is a man's game. We need to grow up and attack the work. And so far they've been great at that.
Third row back corner.
So you kind of alluded to this, like how this generation is a little more sensitive in coaching and stuff. How do you keep them separate from the media, and how do you keep that flag out and keep them focused on their game? What's your message to them?
My message, a lot of times we just talk about what we control,
Yeah.
right? And we don't control social media, the media, like any of those things, right? And so, like, everyone in the media has a job to do, and they got to do their job to the best of their ability, the same way they got to do their job as a football player or as a football coach or as a trainer or whatever, right? So, like, for us, it's like, what do we control? And we're going to focus on that. I do think the social media for young people is hard because, you know, if I dropped a pass on third down 30 years ago, like, it was in the paper and no one read it, you know, not the college kids, you know? And so, but now on social media, a kid drops a pass, he might get 10,000 people tell him that he's trash, right? And that's a lot for a young person to handle. I think that's really, really challenging, but that's just the nature of the world we live in. So how do we help them navigate that space? And how do we help them, you know, lean into each other and not ingest that stuff that can be toxic for their headspace.
Justin.
So you commented on Rhino and Manu. What's the plan for Maldonado moving forward?
So we don't know that yet. He's going to need surgery. So we're waiting for the swelling to go down and that.
And then just looking at the secondary, how do you evaluate that group, and what did you think about Jack Luttrell getting a couple picks?
Oh, I thought that was fantastic, right? Like that's a great example of picking up the flag, right? He hadn't played a lot, and you know we were talking about the special teams earlier. You know, Jack started to get back into, kind of got switched back on in the kicking game, which was awesome. So he's been playing the last few weeks in the kicking game. All of a sudden, he's lining up at free safety, and he makes some huge plays in that game. And so I was encouraged by that play. I think, you know, tomorrow you can talk to Coach Aquina about some of that stuff, or whenever it is, Wednesday. But you know, I think he felt like we felt like as a defense that there were some good moments there with that secondary, considering the lack of experience that was on the field.
Jason.
Kamu went down last game without, I don't know if you can give us more about his status, but should he not be able to play, who's the backup at that point?
So I think he'll be back. You know what I mean? I think he'll be back, but it'll be Tay, and then it'll depend on what we end up doing with the secondary pieces and the linebacking core.
And then how do you deal with increasing pressure? I mean, even if you win games, there's pressure to win the next game, and if you lose, there's pressure. How do you deal with that and make sure that doesn't get too heavy on the team?
Again, that's a little bit like my comment over here. Like, we don't control that. You know what I mean? And so the best teams I've ever been a part of did a fantastic job of leaning on each other and turning in when it was good or bad, right? And finding ways to move forward together. And I think that's what's really important, is that the team, every player, every coach, everybody that is part of our program continues to lean into each other, whether we win or lose. Because you're right, as you go, but that's the nature of football, right? The pressure mounts the later in the season you get. And so can we lean into each other, and can we do the best job we can managing that, right? Like, not letting that be something that is, you know, a distraction or something that is, you know, for some people suffocating.
Brian.
I'm assuming there's still no update on Chikori. You haven't heard anything from that?
As soon as I know, I'll tell you.
And is there
Yeah.
Are you anticipating one
No,
before the season?
I don't know. I don't know.
Are there gonna be any pink elements to the uniform or anything like that? Because
Yes, I believe we have some sort of accessories that are available to the guys. I don't know if it's wristbands or shoelaces or whatever, I don't know.
Okay, not the jersey or anything like
No.
that? No.
Any more questions for Coach? Jason?
Just general thoughts on what you see in West Virginia.
Well, that's a good football team. You know, I know they had a tough one last week, but I think, you know, these guys have played really good football. You saw when they went out and got after Oklahoma State a couple weeks ago. And, I say it a lot with you all, and with our team, like every week in this conference, if you don't show up ready to play, you know, someone's going to get after you. And I think every game is like that in this conference. Every game is a battle. And so, you know, like for me, with our team, we are much more going to do today, right? And how focused can we be on doing the work we have to do to get ready to play a good team coming into our stadium?
Go Justin and then Jason.
So last week you talked about protecting Noah Fafita. How do you go about doing that?
You can add people to the protection, right, which takes people out of the route. You know, like some of that, we can have a little bit more play action, pocket movement, like all those kind of things.
Jason Moore?
Yeah, we're not sure yet if quality is going to be made available tomorrow, but what you mentioned earlier, what does that say that for somebody to have to go through a season, football's tough enough, being a student athlete, and also having that, how has he been through the process? Did you know anything more about that?
So obviously we know a lot about quality because he came from San Jose State. He's an incredible young man. He's a super hard worker. Everyone on the team likes him. His mom's amazing. She comes out every week and braids his hair before the game. It's just a cool ritual that they have. And so I get to see her every Saturday morning. Our relationship, they have a great family. And so they are leaning on each other when they're going staff with, between, all of us, but really Coach Carter and myself, we're checking in with them quite frequently because I know it's a challenging thing for anybody.
All right, that's our time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.